There were 3 coffee mugs in the dishwasher that morning. I only owned 2. One has "Wifey" written in gold script, a cringy bridal shower gift from her friend Marissa, and the other just says, "World's okayest husband, my own bitter joke turned ceramic." The third was a heavy, black mug with a chip on the lip and a faint ring of lipstick around the edge, definitely not hers, and definitely not mine. I stared at it longer than I should have, like it might suddenly tell me a story, and in a way, it already had. You see, she'd left for work early, too early, claiming there was a last-minute meeting with the event planner for our wedding, which was now a month out. But something about that mug felt off. It wasn't just the fact that it existed, it was where it was, how it was angled in the rack, like it had been hastily rinsed and shoved in last minute. And the kicker? The ring on the kitchen counter. Her engagement ring. She never took it off. She once joked she'd wear it while giving birth if she had to. I didn't touch it. Just stared at it, next to the chipped mug, like they were mocking me together. I sat down, slowly, on the bar stool facing the sink, and listened to the silence of our apartment. It felt too still. Not empty, but scrubbed, like someone had cleaned up just enough to pretend nothing happened. I checked her calendar. There was no meeting. I called the event planner just to be sure. She answered groggy, said she hadn't seen my fiancé in over a week. That's when the first crack split down the center of my brain like a hairline fracture in glass. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I just smiled and said, "Thanks," before hanging up and staring again at that goddamn mug. I thought about how you only get chipped mugs from people who don't care about your stuff, or worse, people who don't expect to stay. I ran the dishwasher without touching it. Later that day, she texted me, "Crazy day, love you." No mention of the meeting. No mention of the ring. I replied, "I love you too," because I needed her to believe I still did. Because chess is easier when your opponent thinks you're playing checkers. That night, she came home late, said the meeting ran over, and she'd grabbed dinner with Marissa. I asked her what they ate. She blinked, said Thai, then sushi, then stuck with pad Thai. I didn't push. I just offered to wash the dishes. She laughed and said, "You never wash dishes." I smiled. Maybe I'm changing. Her phone vibrated on the counter while she was in the shower. I didn't need to unlock it. The preview said enough. Last night was insane. Still tasting you. No name. Just a number. I didn't panic. I didn't even blink. I just memorized the digits and deleted the message like a ghost in my own life. When she came out wrapped in a towel, kissing me on the cheek, I kissed her back and told her I missed her. She smiled, guilty but stupid, thinking the lie was working. But the funny thing about betrayal is it's not the pain that hits first. It's the clarity. Like someone wiping fog off a mirror you didn't even realize was blurred. Suddenly, every late night made sense. Every excuse, every forgotten detail, every moment of her phone turned just slightly away from me. But I still didn't confront her. That would have been mercy. And mercy is for the faithful. What I needed was time. And planning. And someone who would help me make her suffer. Enter Marissa, the maid of honor, her best friend since high school, and the one person my fiancé had underestimated more than me. Because Marissa? She had a secret. One that started the night we all got drunk watching wedding videos, and she looked at me a little too long, laughed a little too hard at my jokes, and adjusted her top just enough when my fiancé left the room. I knew right then, she was my path to vengeance. And I would walk it slowly, deliberately, with a smile on my face and a dagger behind my back. Because this wasn't just about betrayal. It was about art. And I was about to paint the most brutal masterpiece of revenge she'd ever seen. She still kissed me goodbye every morning, but it started to feel like a habit, like brushing teeth or locking the door, something done automatically, without thought or warmth. It used to linger, those kisses, a soft press of lips that said, "I'll miss you." Now they barely made contact, a dry brush on my cheek while she scrolled through her phone. She'd started wearing perfume to work, the expensive kind she used to save for special nights out. And when I asked what the occasion was, she said, "Just feeling good lately." I wanted to believe her. God, I really did. She'd come home buzzing, eyes lit up like she'd found a secret battery pack somewhere. "I've been thinking about starting a podcast," she told me one evening over dinner, stabbing her salad like it had wronged her. "About relationships, trauma, personal boundaries, you know? That kind of thing." I asked if she wanted help setting it up, and she waved me off. "No offense, babe, but I kind of want it to be just mine." That word stuck with me. Mine, not ours. She used to say ours all the time, our home, our future, our plans. Now it was her growth, her journey, her new therapist. She never said it outright, but I could feel it in the air between us, like a room slowly filling with smoke. At first, it's just a smell. By the time you see the fire, it's already too late. She started locking her phone, which she never did before. Just a habit, she said when I asked. You never know with people these days. I guess I wasn't one of those people anymore. Then there were the purchases, big ones. A new MacBook, a gym membership to some boutique studio that charged more per month than most people's rent, a weekend wellness retreat in Sedona that she booked without telling me. It's not that I don't want you to come, she said, pulling away from my touch like my hand was too hot. It's just, I need this for me. Time alone. To reflect. I nodded like a good little fiancé, told her I understood, and watched her walk away with that new spring in her step. She called it empowerment. I called it an exit strategy. But I still didn't confront her. Maybe I was afraid of the answer. Or maybe I was still clinging to the version of her who used to curl up next to me in bed and whisper dreams into my neck like secrets only I could hold. But even those moments were changing. She stopped sleeping with her head on my chest. She faced the other way. She claimed it was better for her back, and maybe that was true, but the space between us and that bed started to feel like a canyon. She used to send me texts throughout the day, funny memes, little updates, thinking of you messages. Now? Silence. I'd text her and get one-word replies, or worse, a heart reaction like she was too busy to even type. And yet, when I looked at her Instagram, she was posting stories constantly, photos with coworkers I'd never met, selfies with cryptic captions like, be your own hero, and energy doesn't lie. One night, I opened her profile only to find I couldn't see anything. She'd made her account private. From me. I didn't even ask. I just sat in the dark staring at my phone, realizing I'd been locked out of her digital world just like I was being locked out of her real one. The final push came when I found the hotel key card in her glove box. It was wedged between a bag of almonds and an old receipt from a gas station, like it had been tossed there in a rush. No name on it. No date. Just a key. When I asked if she'd gone anywhere recently, she said no, not since the retreat. I asked again, softer this time, and she looked at me like I was the one being paranoid. Why are you acting so weird lately? She said, annoyed. It's like you don't trust me. That was the moment I realized she was gaslighting me. Not in the overt, cartoonish way, but in the slow, insidious way that seeps under your skin and makes you question your own memory. So I stopped asking. I nodded. I kissed her on the forehead and told her I was just stressed, that I needed to be better at communicating. She smiled and said, we're both growing. But what she meant was, I'm growing away from you. And yet still, I held on. Because I wasn't ready for the full truth. Because somewhere in the back of my mind, I thought maybe she was just going through something. Maybe it wasn't another man. Maybe it was just a phase. And then one day, she told me she was thinking about postponing the wedding. Not canceling, she said quickly, watching my face. Just giving it more time. I didn't react. I just said, whatever you need. Because at that point, I wasn't clinging anymore. I was observing, recording, preparing, not for a wedding, but for the kind of reckoning you don't walk away from unchanged. It was a Wednesday night when the ground finally gave way beneath me, and the thing is, it started like nothing. She was cooking, actually cooking for once, something she hadn't done in weeks. The kitchen smelled like rosemary and garlic, and she was humming softly, a song I didn't recognize, some trendy indie crap she'd picked up from her self-healing playlist. I was on the couch, scrolling absently, not really watching the TV. Just soaking it in. The illusion. The stillness before a bomb goes off. She was halfway through pouring wine when her phone buzzed on the counter, and I happened to glance up. Not out of suspicion. Just reflex. Just a flick of the eyes. The screen lit up with a name I didn't know, Nico. Just that. No heart emoji. No pet name. But the message underneath hit harder than a gunshot in a quiet church. Can't stop thinking about your mouth last night. Hope he's still clueless. My blood didn't boil. It froze. It turned to stone. I didn't react. I didn't flinch. I didn't even look away. I just studied her, standing there with the bottle tilted over the glass, her lips moving softly to the tune she was humming, completely unaware that the mask had finally slipped. I made no sound. My breath stayed steady. I picked up my own glass, took a sip, and let the taste of Cabernet coat my tongue like the final confirmation of a death sentence. She turned, smiling. You okay? She asked, completely unaware. Yeah, I said. Smells great. She went back to humming. I watched her plate the food. Chicken. Roasted carrots. Quinoa. She poured the wine, handed me my glass, and sat down across from me like we were still some kind of couple. I watched her hands. The same hands that used to pull my face in close, now decorated with betrayal and a perfectly manicured coat of innocent beige. She started talking about a TED Talk she watched, something about boundaries and authentic living, her voice all animated and full of artificial energy. I nodded in all the right places. My eyes followed her mouth. The same mouth Nico couldn't stop thinking about. The same mouth that had whispered, "I love you," this morning as I handed her coffee with a note that said, "You're my home." The note was still in the trash when I took it out later, unfolded it, and smoothed the creases like I was pressing down on my own stupidity. That night, she kissed me goodnight with lips that weren't mine anymore. I let her. I even kissed her back. She rolled over and fell asleep within minutes, breathing soft and steady, as if she hadn't just murdered our future in a single message. I lay there staring at the ceiling, not thinking, not feeling, just knowing that everything I suspected was true. Worse than I imagined. Dirtier, crueler, premeditated. She was mocking me. Hope he's still clueless. I closed my eyes, not to sleep, but to see it all clearly for the first time. The distance, the lies, the gaslighting, the way she locked her phone and told me I was paranoid, the late nights, the hotel key, the locked social media. And now this Nico. Whoever he was, he had no idea what kind of reckoning was about to befall both of them. But I wasn't going to explode. I wasn't going to scream or beg or even ask why. That would have given her power. That would have made it real for her before it was ready. No. She was going to think everything was fine. She was going to believe I was still clueless. Because that's the most dangerous kind of man, the one who knows and doesn't show it. The one who smiles through betrayal. The one who sharpens the knife while the traitor sleeps. She curled up tighter beside me, seeking warmth. I stayed cold. I didn't move. Just listened to her breathe. Counted the seconds. Burned her name into the wall of my mind like graffiti you carve with a nail. I knew then that love was done. Grief was done. Forgiveness? That never even entered the room. What came next wasn't heartbreak. It was planning. Cold, quiet, surgical planning. Because if she wanted a new life, I was going to give her one. Just not the kind she had in mind. I became a ghost in my own life, a presence that drifted silently through our shared spaces while my mind moved 5 steps ahead of every word she spoke. I didn't confront. I didn't accuse. I just watched, listened, and adjusted. The day after the Nico message, I made her breakfast like nothing had changed, told her I'd be working from home more often this week. Less office stress, I said with a smile. She bought it. Of course she did. She was too wrapped up in her own performance to realize the stage lights had shifted. While she was in the shower, I cloned her phone. A quiet download of her backup files to an encrypted app I'd installed on my laptop weeks ago, back when the first doubts started slithering through my skull. Her messages, her photos, her location data, every fingerprint she left behind was now mine. I didn't go digging all at once. That would have been messy. Instead, I scrolled slowly, methodically, cataloging patterns and timestamps. She told me she had weekly meetings on Tuesdays at 6 p.m. But her GPS told a different story. The same hotel parking lot, over and over again, 30 minutes after her meetings ended. She wasn't even trying to hide it. That arrogance was going to cost her everything. I cross-referenced the dates with charges on our shared bank account. There were no hotel fees too easy to trace. But I found consistent payments to a coffee shop 2 blocks from the hotel, always with the same price. A decoy location. Smart, but not smart enough. I called the shop, asked if I could purchase a gift card for someone, and needed to confirm if they came in regularly. Sure, the guy said. Name. I gave her name. Oh yeah, he laughed. She's in here like clockwork with that tall guy. What's his name? Nico or something? I thanked him. Hung up. Smiled. That was confirmation. Not just of the affair, but of their stupidity. Now I needed to know how deep it went. I messaged an old college friend of mine, Lucas, tech-savvy, discreet, and still owed me a favor for bailing him out of a DUI a decade ago. I gave him the number from the text. 2 hours later, he had a full profile. Nico was real. Sales manager. Divorced. 2 kids. A walking cliché. And from the looks of his social media, he thought he'd won some prize. Photos of his workouts, motivational captions, and a recent mystery dinner date post with a blurred face across the table that matched the silhouette of my fiancée. The next step was psychological. I started feeding her questions, gently, coated in ignorance. Did your meeting run long again last night? I'd ask, already knowing exactly where she'd been. What's that new coffee shop you like near the venue? I waited for her to lie. Not to catch her, but to count how many times she could do it without blinking. Every false answer was another nail in the coffin. I planted little traps. One evening, I told her I was going out for drinks with a client, made up the name, invented the whole backstory, and waited to see what she'd do. 30 minutes after I left, her location pinged at that same damn hotel. I stayed home, sat in the dark, didn't even turn on the TV, just waited. Watched the little blue dot on my map screen crawl back toward home at 10:07 p.m. She came in humming. Again, same smug little song. Told me she was exhausted from her reading group. I offered her a glass of wine. Watched her sip it without a flicker of guilt. That's when I realized she didn't just cheat. She believed I was too soft, too loyal, too spineless to ever do anything about it. That belief would become her downfall. I started documenting everything: screenshots, bank statements, location history, voice memos where I repeated her lies verbatim to record the inconsistencies. A file on my desktop labeled tax receipts that no one but me would ever open. I even spoke to Marissa casually, under the guise of wedding planning, and slipped in a mention of Nico. She froze for half a second, just long enough. Then she smiled and said she'd never heard that name. I made a mental note. She was in on it, or she was lying to protect someone. Either way, she'd become a piece on the board, just like the rest. I started mirroring her, emotionally. Pulled away ever so slightly. Became less present. Shorter replies. Late nights working in the office. She noticed. She started asking if I was okay. "You've been a little distant," she said one night. I kissed her forehead and said, "Just tired." She curled into me like everything was fine, like we were still in love, and I held her, imagining how beautifully this would all fall apart. Because now I wasn't just gathering proof. I was calculating impact. I wasn't preparing for confrontation. I was preparing for detonation. She had no idea the walls were closing in. No clue that every smile I gave her was part of her undoing. I wasn't her fiancé anymore. I was her executioner. Quiet, precise, and patient. It happened at the charity gala we were co-hosting, the one she'd been obsessively planning for months, the one where she insisted on picking out my suit because she wanted us to match the energy of the evening. She wore a sleek emerald dress that clung to her like sin and moved through the ballroom like royalty, shaking hands, laughing too loud, calling me my future husband to strangers while her eyes kept flicking to the entrance every 5 minutes. I watched her from across the room, sipping whiskey and smiling like I didn't know she was waiting for someone else. I had arranged for our table to be near the stage, in full view of the audience. Not for convenience. For maximum visibility. At exactly 8:43 p.m., Nico walked in. I recognized him immediately, taller than his photos, but the same smug expression, the same cocky gait of a man who thinks he's won something. He scanned the room until his eyes landed on her, and even though they never touched, the flicker of recognition between them was a gunshot in my chest. She froze for a split second, then smiled at someone else, pretending not to notice him. But she noticed. I let the evening unfold a little longer. Speeches, laughter, music, and then came the auction segment, where photos of the event planning process played on the screen above the stage, courtesy of the AV team she'd personally hired. I had slipped one photo into the mix. Just one. It appeared like a whisper, sandwiched between snapshots of flower arrangements and table layouts. A blurry image taken from a security camera outside the hotel. 2 people. One unmistakably her, the other unmistakably Nico. His hand was on her hip. Her face was tilted up toward his. It stayed on screen for 7 seconds. 7 seconds of silence so profound the entire room felt like it had dropped into a black hole. She gasped, audibly, one hand going to her mouth as though it could pull the air back in. I stood up slowly and tapped my glass with a fork. "For those asking about that last image," I said, voice calm, smooth as the scotch in my blood, "that's not part of the auction. That's just something I thought deserved to be seen. Transparency is important in charity work, and in relationships." She was already out of her seat, walking fast toward me, face pale, eyes darting around to see who was watching. Everyone was. She hissed my name under her breath. "What the hell is wrong with you?" I didn't respond. Just looked at her like I was seeing her for the first time. "It's not what you think," she whispered, grabbing my arm. "We were just talking." I nodded. "With his hand on your hip? Outside a hotel you don't remember checking into." She glanced around, lowering her voice even further. "Can we not do this here? Please." "Why?" I said, loud enough for the three nearest tables to hear. Is it uncomfortable to be exposed in public? Her lips trembled. It was a mistake. A stupid mistake. It didn't mean anything. You repeated the mistake 10 times in 3 weeks, I said, keeping my tone surgical, emotionless. I have the records. The receipts. The GPS logs. The texts. Her eyes went wide. Panic finally registered. You went through my phone? No, I said. I went through the truth. You were just attached to it like a tumor. She started to cry. Not real tears, performative, shallow sobs that didn't touch her voice. I didn't feel seen, okay? You were always so distant. You didn't even notice when I dyed my hair last month. You mean when you switched shampoos? Yeah, I noticed. I also noticed the missing ring on Tuesday. The one you forgot at home. Her expression twisted. You don't get to moralize, not after ambushing me like this in front of everyone. Do you know how cruel that is? No, I said, smiling faintly. But I'm learning. From you. She laughed bitterly, pushing her hair behind her ear like she was gearing up for a monologue. You think this makes you some kind of hero? Exposing me in public? You're pathetic. You'll always be pathetic. I leaned in, close enough that only she could hear the next line. If I'm pathetic, what does that make the man who lost you to me, and then let you crawl back to him while you were still full of someone else? That shut her up. Her face went slack, then flushed with a hot wave of shame. She turned her back to me, but the room was still watching, still buzzing with the tension I had orchestrated like a symphony. She tried to compose herself, wiping at her eyes, straightening her dress, pretending nothing had happened. But it had. The illusion was broken. I didn't move from my place. Didn't walk out. Didn't storm off. I stayed right there, letting the moment stretch, letting the silence bend the air around us, thick with judgment and disbelief. She sat down slowly, like her legs had turned to glass. And I just stood there, hands in my pockets, watching the ruin I had designed bloom in real time. The next morning, she came into the kitchen like a storm pretending to be a breeze, slow steps, eyes puffy, wrapped in a robe she usually wore on cozy Sunday mornings, the ones we used to share before all of this turned rotten. She tried to smile. We need to talk, she said softly, but there was a tremor under the calm, a quiet desperation that smelled like smoke after a house fire. I didn't respond. Just kept stirring my coffee, letting the silence stretch out like a blade between us. She sat down at the island, fingers trembling slightly, waiting for me to speak first. I didn't. So she started. Last night was unnecessary. You embarrassed me in front of everyone. You humiliated me. Her voice cracked, not from pain, but from the weight of realizing she wasn't the victim in this narrative anymore. Still, I said nothing. Just looked at her. She shifted. I know I made a mistake. But you have to take some responsibility too. You were distant. You stopped being present. You always made me feel like I was never enough for you. I raised an eyebrow, nothing more. So, to be enough, you had to spread your legs for a stranger? The words landed like a slap. She flinched. You're cruel, she whispered. No, I said, voice calm and level. I'm done being kind to people who use it as an invitation to betray me. She stood up then, heat in her cheeks, pacing now. You don't get it, do you? You smothered me. Always watching. Always needing. It was exhausting. I couldn't breathe. I took a slow sip of coffee. And yet, you always found time to breathe just fine in hotel rooms with him. She slammed her hand on the counter. You were boring. Predictable. Always so calculated. Like nothing I did mattered to you unless it was part of your little perfect life checklist. Everything you did mattered, I said, until it didn't. She blinked, suddenly unsure of her footing, the anger flickering into something else, panic. You're acting like you don't care. Like this doesn't hurt you. I tilted my head. Oh, it did. The moment I found out. And then I buried that version of myself right next to the man who used to believe your lies. She scoffed, crossing her arms. You think you're so above all this? Like you're better than me? I am, I said plainly, and that's exactly why it's over. Her eyes welled up again, this time with genuine terror. So that's it? You're just going to walk away like I meant nothing? No, I said. I'm going to walk away because you meant everything and you treated it like nothing. That shut her up for a moment. She sat down again, quieter now, but not calm. Her voice dropped. I don't want to lose you. I looked at her, really looked, and saw the desperation crawling behind her eyes like an animal cornered. You already did. She tried to reach for my hand, and I pulled away. Don't, I said. You don't get to touch me like that anymore. Her expression twisted into something uglier. So you think you're some kind of hero now? Is that it? You want people to feel sorry for you? You want a medal for not being a raging psychopath after I cheated? No, I said. I want you to understand that indifference is the loudest "I don't love you" you'll ever hear. She stood up again, shouting now. You were never enough of a man. That's why it happened. That's why he was able to give me what you couldn't. I let the insult hang in the air, let it echo against the walls of the home we used to share. Then I leaned forward, my voice lower than hers, calmer than ever. And yet, here you are, screaming for a man you say wasn't enough. Her mouth opened, then closed. No words. Just breathing. Shallow. Shaken. She sat down again like her legs couldn't hold her. She finally understood. Nothing she said could touch me anymore. I wasn't angry. I wasn't sad. I simply didn't care. And that terrified her far more than fury ever could. Because she needed me to react, to rage, to chase, to cry, anything that would make her feel significant again. But I'd taken that power away. Quietly. Completely. She was spiraling, and I was just standing there, untouched by her storm, watching it burn itself out. I started with the basics: paperwork, passwords, property. While she slept one night, curled up in the fetal position on the edge of the bed we no longer shared in any meaningful way, I logged into every shared account and began severing the threads. Credit cards canceled. Bank accounts frozen, then split. My direct deposit rerouted to a new solo account at a different bank, one she'd never even heard of. I transferred the lease of the apartment into my name, knowing full well her name was only ever secondary, a signature of convenience I now erased with surgical ease. I waited until she was at her yoga class to retrieve the car's spare key and drive it to a secure lot I'd already arranged. She texted me later, confused, asking why the car wasn't in the garage. I told her it had been repossessed for non-payment. A lie, of course, but fitting, symbolic. Her luxuries were over. The real work began with documentation. Every text, every photo, every location ping, every lie she told, I printed them. I created a file folder labeled Disclosure, not for legal reasons, but for reputation. I sent a carefully curated packet of evidence, not explicit, but damning to her parents. No letter. No explanation. Just the truth, time-stamped and bulletproof. Her father, a former military man, didn't reply. Her mother called and left a shaky voicemail that ended in tears. I didn't return the call. I made no dramatic announcements to friends or family. I just sent a group message to our closest circle: the wedding is off. If anyone wants to know why, ask her. That silence from my end made the noise on hers unbearable. People talk. Screenshots spread. Every question she deflected only made it worse. I reached out to her boss anonymously, forwarding proof of her midday hotel rendezvous during claimed work hours, complete with timestamps and locations. I didn't embellish. I didn't need to. The facts were lethal enough. A week later, she was let go for restructuring, though we both knew what really happened. I watched her unravel from a distance, half-dressed on the couch at noon, her phone lighting up with calls she didn't answer, friends dropping off one by one as the truth closed in like a noose. Meanwhile, I was a ghost in the apartment, preparing my final exit. I secured a new place across town, already furnished, already mine. I arranged movers for a single morning, while she was at what was supposed to be her new job orientation. She came back to find half the furniture gone, my closet stripped, and a single envelope taped to the fridge. Inside, her engagement ring, a copy of the lease in her name only, and the final balance of our shared bills paid in full. No note. No farewell. Just silence, the kind that screams. But the true masterpiece was saved for last. Marissa. Her best friend. The one she leaned on during the affair. The one who lied for her. I'd been seeing Marissa quietly for weeks, not out of love, not even out of lust, but out of design. She'd always been the weaker link, always wanted what my fiancé had. All it took was a few pointed conversations, a couple late-night drinks, and the right kind of attention. She fell fast, and I let her. Then, the night before I left for good, I invited Marissa over, knowing full well my fiancé had a key and was prone to unannounced visits when her spiral reached its peaks. She arrived right on schedule. Keys in the door. Footsteps in the hall. The moment she opened the bedroom door and saw her best friend in my bed, her scream was less of rage and more of complete existential collapse. I looked at her and said nothing. Marissa pulled the covers up like that would shield her from the consequences. My ex didn't cry. She didn't speak. She just stood there, eyes wide, throat tight, realizing she'd lost everything, and now she wasn't even special in her own betrayal. I stood, dressed, walked past her, and left the room without so much as a glance back. Because revenge isn't about destruction. It's about precision. She took my trust, so I took her foundation. And by the time she realized the life she built was burning, I'd already moved on, untouched, unbothered, and completely free. It was her cousin's engagement party, a large, glittering backyard affair drenched in fairy lights and catered hors d'oeuvres, the kind of event where people wear practiced smiles and measure social currency in glances and whispers. She begged me to come, weeks after I'd moved out, after the job loss, after the walls began to close in, swearing she wanted to show people we were still okay, pretending like we were just going through something. I agreed without hesitation. Not because I wanted closure. Because I wanted witnesses. Everyone was there. Her parents, her cousins, her former co-workers, our mutual friends, and every single one of them had already seen the evidence. Screenshots of her text with Nico, video footage from the hotel hallway security camera I'd obtained through a casual favor, even the voice messages where she joked about how easily I was fooled. I never released them all at once. I leaked them like poison, slowly, silently, strategically, to the right people at the right time. By the night of that party, she didn't know who had seen what, only that everyone was different. The smiles she used to receive were brittle, now forced. Conversation stopped when she walked by. People stared. And she felt it. I could see it in the way she gripped her wine glass too tight, how she kept checking her phone like salvation might buzz in from the screen. When I arrived, calm, composed, alone, she lit up with a brittle smile and walked toward me like everything was fine. "Thank you for coming," she said, voice just above a whisper, I scanning my face for warmth. I gave her a polite nod. No hug. No kiss. Just presence. She didn't understand yet. Not fully. But she would. The shift happened slowly, like a stage collapsing in pieces. Her father wouldn't make eye contact. Her mother gave her a forced smile and turned away. Her friends stayed clustered together, whispering, glancing her way like she had a disease. And then came Marissa. Dressed stunning, confident, arm in arm with another mutual friend, and not her. The gasp from her lips when she saw Marissa was real. The betrayal on her face said more than words ever could. She tried to act unfazed, laughing too loudly, saying things like, "God, people are so awkward tonight," like she was still the victim of some unspoken misunderstanding. But then Nico arrived. Alone. Late. And when she approached him, relief etched across her face like he was her last lifeline. He didn't smile. He didn't touch her. He looked at her with the dead-eyed stare of a man who had just been sent every detail of her side conversations, text mocking his intelligence, laughing about how easily she kept him strung along. She touched his arm. He pulled away. One word. Don't. Then he left. Just walked out. Her smile twitched. She turned back toward the party, panic flaring in her eyes. I could see her mentally running through a list of allies. Every face she landed on turned away. Even the cousin who invited her averted her eyes and clutched her fiancé's arm just a little tighter. She tried to laugh again, but her voice cracked halfway through. "This is insane," she said to no one in particular. "It's all lies. None of it's real." But it was. It all was. And I was standing right there, 10 feet away, watching her crumble in real time. Her world, once so perfectly curated, was rotting from the inside out, and now the cracks were visible to everyone. She approached me then, desperate, broken in her heels, mascara smudged just enough to betray her unraveling. "Please," she whispered, "just tell them it's not true. Just tell them it was a misunderstanding. We can fix this. We can make it right." I looked at her, really looked, this woman I had once planned a life with, and saw not the person she used to be, but the ruin she had made of herself. "I didn't do this to you," I said quietly. "You did." That was it. Just 6 words. But the weight of them knocked her back a step. She opened her mouth again, but nothing came out. There was nothing left to say. She looked around one last time, as if searching for someone, anyone who might still believe in her, still care. But no one met her eyes. And then she saw mine. Still. Cold. Watching. And that's what shattered her. Not the loss of her job, not the disgust on her father's face, not even the absence of her lover. It was the way I looked at her, without love, without hate, without anything. Like a stranger witnessing the final collapse of a monument no one would rebuild. And I didn't leave. I stayed, sipping my drink, talking to her cousins, laughing softly at a joke someone made. Because I wanted her to feel it. To live inside that humiliation. To drown in the silence that followed her every step. And when she finally left the party, slipping out the side gate like a ghost, I didn't follow. I didn't need to. The ruin was complete. It happened at her parents' house, a tense family dinner. She begged me to attend after weeks of silence, claiming she wanted to clear the air, to heal in front of the people who matter. I knew what it really was, a desperate last-ditch attempt to salvage her image, to pull some sympathy from the wreckage. I showed up alone, in a dark suit, calm as ever. The room was packed tighter than usual. Her parents, her younger brother and his fiancée, two of her closest friends, and to my surprise, even Nico, who clearly hadn't expected me to be there. His eyes darted around the room like a man looking for the nearest exit. I sat across from her at the long oak table, the same one we used to eat at during holidays, and I didn't say a word for the first 20 minutes. I just watched her fidget, watched her force smiles, watched her try to spin small talk with a voice too high and laughter too hollow. Then her father cleared his throat and said, "So, are we going to talk about what happened?" The air shifted instantly. Her hand tightened around her wine glass. She forced a laugh and said, "I think it's better if we just move forward. Everyone makes mistakes, right?" I raised an eyebrow. Mistake? You didn't trip and fall into his bed. That was the first crack. Her head snapped toward me. "Don't start," she hissed. "Not here." "Why not here?" I said, standing slowly. "You brought your lover to a family dinner. Don't act shy now." Gasps. Her mother covered her mouth. Her brother muttered "Jesus Christ" under his breath. Nico shifted, visibly sweating. "This isn't the place," she snapped, standing up to meet me at eye level. "You're trying to humiliate me." "No," I said calmly. "You already did that to yourself. I'm just giving the rest of the audience a front row seat. You don't know what I've been through." She screamed suddenly, shattering the last illusion of composure. "You were never there for me emotionally. You made me feel invisible." "Invisible?" I shot back, voice rising just enough. "You mean while I was paying your bills? Planning our future? Loving you like my life depended on it while you were off playing victim in a hotel bed you swore didn't exist?" Her mother tried to interject. "Please, let's not," but I kept going. "You want to talk about emotional support? Let's talk about the Thursday night you said you were with Marissa, but your location history says otherwise. Or the messages you left on Nico's phone, shall I read them out loud? You described me as your safety net, and him as your escape. Does that sound like someone who was invisible, or someone you used like a doormat until he finally stepped out of your way?" She lunged toward me, finger in my face. "You're just mad you weren't man enough to keep me." I stepped back, tilted my head. "Then why are you still chasing me now?" That stopped her. Her breath hitched. Her eyes glistened, but it wasn't sorrow, it was rage, cornered desperation. "I made a mistake," she growled. "Everyone here has made mistakes. But not everyone here built a future on lies and burned it for an ego boost." I turned slightly, addressing the room. She didn't just cheat. She mocked me, manipulated me, paraded this man around while I still believed she loved me. Ask her friends. Ask her family. Ask Nico, who, by the way, dumped her the moment he realized she wasn't even loyal to him. All eyes turned to Nico, who looked like he wanted to sink through the floor. "I didn't know she was still with him," he muttered. "She told me they were done." "They weren't," I said. "Not until she walked in on me and her best friend, Marissa. Then it became real." Another wave of gasps. One of her friends stood up and actually walked out. Her brother's fiancée whispered, "Oh my God," under her breath. My ex looked around the room like she was drowning, like every face she once controlled had turned against her. "You're sick," she spat. "You're vindictive." "No," I said, straightening my jacket. "I'm free." She screamed in full-on, voice-cracking, tear-streaked rage. "You ruined my life." "No," I said, stepping toward her. "You ruined mine. I just returned the favor." The room was frozen, a mixture of horror and fascination. Phones had come out. Someone was recording. Her father stood up slowly, looking at his daughter like he didn't recognize her. "Get out," he said softly, but it wasn't to me, it was to her. She stared at him, trembling. "Dad, please," I said out. Her knees buckled slightly as she turned, stumbling past Nico, who wouldn't even meet her eyes, and out the front door into the night. I looked around one final time, adjusted my cufflinks, and said, "I didn't come here to destroy her. I came to let her do it herself." Then I walked out, not looking back, the weight of justice like armor on my shoulders. She disappeared for a while after the confrontation, off social media, off the radar, like a ghost who suddenly realized the world could see right through her. Word spread fast, not because I pushed it, but because betrayal that calculated doesn't stay buried for long. Her company let her go under the pretense of internal restructuring, but everyone knew why. The HR manager saw the hotel footage herself. Her friends stopped answering her calls. Group chat she once dominated went silent, or worse, removed her completely. Even her younger brother, the one who used to defend her no matter what, posted a photo with me captioned "Loyalty over blood." She tried to reclaim control in the beginning, posting a carefully cropped photo with a vague caption about healing and second chances, but comments were turned off, and no one was fooled. Nico? He vanished like mist. Blocked her on everything, never replied to her calls, went back to his ex-wife like she never existed. Eventually, she moved out of the city, into a smaller town where no one knew her name or cared to ask. She took a job at a local retail chain, folding clothes for minimum wage, the kind of work she once called soul-killing during dinner parties. I heard about it from Marissa, who, despite everything, couldn't help checking up on her once in a while. She lived in a one-bedroom apartment above a laundromat, drove a beat-up Honda she could barely afford, and spent most nights alone. The woman who once mocked my routines and my love for quiet stability now clung to silence like it was the only thing that didn't judge her. And then, one night, 3 months after the storm, she showed up at my door. I didn't even know how she found my new address, but there she was, standing in the rain like some cliché from a movie, soaked, shaking, eyes hollowed out by everything she'd lost. I opened the door and said nothing. She stared at me for a full 10 seconds before speaking. "I'm sorry," she said. "I didn't realize. I didn't know what I had until it was gone." Her voice cracked. "I don't want money. I don't want anything. I just want a chance to explain." I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, watching her tremble. "Explain what? That you lied to my face every day for months? That you let me plan a future while you rehearsed betrayal behind my back?" She took a step forward, tears now streaming down her face. "I was stupid. I was scared. I thought I could find something better. But there was nothing better. There's no one like you. No one who ever loved me like you did." I nodded slowly. "You're right. There isn't." Her breath caught. "Please," she whispered. "I don't care if we just talk. I don't care if you never forgive me. I just want to be near you again. I miss you. I miss us." I stared at her for a long, heavy moment. Then I stepped back, just enough to close the door halfway. "I don't miss anything," I said. "Because what we had, you buried it the moment you said yes to him." She sobbed, but I didn't waver. "I still love you," she whispered, one last desperate reach. I gave her a long, cold look. "Strange," I said. "I don't even remember your name anymore." Then I shut the door, and this time, I locked it, not out of fear, but finality. Because some doors, once closed, are never meant to be opened again. Thank you for listening to my story. Now it's your turn. Where are you from? And did you enjoy the ride?